All right, this is the copyright disclaimer. The copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Fair use, fair use, fair use.
It's so weird watching black people get mad at white people for starting functioning white communities. It's like, you know how happy we'd be to see black people start a functioning black community?
You know what's really weird is when white people try to get on this app and pretend that every time a successful black community has been started, white people didn't jump in and destroy it. Don't believe me? We have multiple examples. Let's start off with Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier looks beautiful, doesn't it? It was a wonderful black community until it got too successful. And then white people ran the black people out of their community, dammed up a river, and flooded their town. It's all right, though. Tons of white people lose their lives every single summer. I don't know why I find it so funny. I do. I find it hysterical. Dumbass white people enjoy their lives on this lake, and the souls of black people take their lives. But there's more. What about Greenwood? You know, Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was incredibly successful. But then there was a claim that a black man hurt a white woman. Fucking white women. And so a whole bunch of white men came into the town and set it ablaze, killing over 300 people. It was an incredibly successful town. Until again, set ablaze by white people, because God forbid that black people have a successful town. There's another one, Rosewood, Florida. There's not even a town left. White people are that weak. They were successful. They claim in their history, in white people history, that they killed 6 people. It was closer to 200. 200 people that they massacred. Anyways, what were you saying about you'd be so happy if black people created a successful black town?
Why did North Carolina had black towns richer than white towns? They erased them, and never told you why. Princeville, North Carolina, founded 1885 by freed slaves. First town in America chartered by black people. Successful farms, black-owned businesses, their own government. Then Hurricane Floyd hit in 1999. The town flooded. But white towns upstream had levees for decades. Princeville got nothing. FEMA offered buyouts to erase it permanently. 5 generations gone. Durham's Parish Street, Black Wall Street of the South. Black-owned insurance companies, banks, doctors, lawyers. North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance became the largest black-owned business in America. Then the 1960s. Urban renewal, the Durham Freeway, Highway 147. They ran it straight through Haiti, one of the most prosperous black communities in the country. Over 600 black-owned businesses. They bulldozed it all, displaced thousands. Destroyed millions in black wealth, generational wealth that could never be rebuilt. They called it progress. Charlotte's Brooklyn neighborhood. Second Ward. Thriving black community. Torn down for urban development. This isn't ancient history. People alive today remember when the government came with bulldozers. You learned about the Civil War, about segregation. But did they teach you about Princeville, Haiti, Black Wall Street, and Durham? No. Because if you knew they deliberately destroyed black wealth, you'd demand reparations. Comment your state. Let's expose every black town they erased. Follow for the history they're terrified of you learning.
This is a list of 5 black towns that were destroyed to create structures of white progress. Oscarville, Georgia, was burnt down in 1912 after a white woman was found unalive. The assumption was that a black man violated her. Later in the 1950s, the Beaufort Dam was built, flooding the remains of the town to create Lake Lanier. Benson, Alabama, flourished with businesses, schools, and churches until 1926, when the construction of the Martin Dam submerged the town to create Lake Martin. Seneca Village, New York, boasted homes, churches, and a school until the 1850s, when the city seized the land through eminent domain to create Central Park. Susanna, Alabama, another casualty of white progress, met its end in the 1960s with the construction of the Martin Dam, displacing its residents and erasing their vibrant community from the map. Vanport, Oregon, represented hope and opportunity until a catastrophic flood in 1948 wiped it away.
East St. Louis, Illinois, 1917. White mobs burned entire black neighborhoods to the ground. General Frank Dixon would later testify that his troops were told not to fire on the white mobs. It was July 1917 in East St. Louis, Illinois. Thousands of black families had come north looking for factory jobs and a better future. The mobs started attacking them in the streets. Then homes were burned while families were still inside. More than 300 homes and businesses were destroyed. The official death toll was 39 black residents and 9 white. But historians believe many more people were killed. 6,000 black residents fled the city. Many never came back. Weeks later, 10,000 people marched in silence through New York City. They carried signs. No one spoke. 2 years later, it happened again. City after city across the country. History would call it Red Summer. But East St. Louis came first, erased by design.
They burned down the wealthiest black neighborhood in America, dropped bombs from airplanes, then called it a race riot. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenwood District, 1921, Black Wall Street, black-owned banks, hotels, theaters, newspapers, over 10,000 black residents, millionaires, doctors, lawyers, thriving. May 31st, 1921, a white mob surrounded the area, armed, angry. A black man named Dick Rowland was accused of assaulting a white woman in an elevator. He didn't, but that didn't matter. Here's what they don't teach you. White Tulsans deputized the mob, gave them badges, made the massacre legal. Then they attacked, burned 35 city blocks, over 2,200 homes destroyed, churches, schools, businesses, everything. And then they used airplanes, dropped firebombs and turpentine balls from the sky onto black families running for their lives, the first aerial bombing of American citizens on American soil against black people, over 300 black people murdered, some estimates say 800. They buried bodies in mass graves. The state covered it up for 75 years. Didn't teach it in Oklahoma schools until 2002, and they called it a race riot, like both sides were equally responsible, like black people burned down their own wealth. Your ancestors built an empire. White supremacy couldn't compete, so they bombed it from the sky and erased it from textbooks. Drop A if you're tired of them calling massacres riots. Follow for the black Southern wealth they destroyed and the truth they buried.
Did you know black towns across America were flooded on purpose? Not by storms, but by dams, lakes, and development projects. Oscarville, GA, a thriving black town wiped out in 1912. Later drowned by Lake Lanier in the 1950s. Coaliga, AL, home to the first black-owned railroad, gone buried under Lake Martin. Ferguson, SC, vanished under Lake Marion during a government hydro project. Little Egypt, NC, a peaceful black fishing village, submerged beneath Belews Lake. Vanport, Oregon's second largest city, washed away in 1948. Black residents were never allowed to rebuild. Seneca Village, NYC, erased in 1857 to build Central Park. These weren't accidents, these were black communities erased from the map. How many more we may never know.
14 years, from 1863 to 1877, look at the progress that black people made attempting to be free, Blacks made great strides achieving political offices, developing private businesses, even setting up dozens of all-black towns. In fact, about it, we had built 60 towns. But white terrorists targeted them for destruction. As in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the first bombs that ever fell in America or on American soil fell on Black Wall Street. Y'all remember Black Wall Street in Tulsa?
American suburbs weren't natural. They were engineered by the federal government to move white families out of cities and trap black families in urban decay. This was policy. If you grew up in the suburbs, your grandparents got government-backed loans. Black families were legally banned from getting. This is why the wealth gap exists. Keep watching. After Ftvatbj, the GI Bill and FHA loans gave millions of white veterans money to buy homes in the suburbs. But those loans came with one rule: whites only. The FHA literally created maps marking black neighborhoods as hazardous and refusing to insure mortgages there. They called it redlining. Banks wouldn't lend to black families. Developers wouldn't sell to them. Suburbs had legal contracts banning black ownership. Meanwhile, the federal government invested billions in suburban infrastructure, roads, schools, sewer systems, but left cities to collapse. White families built generational wealth. Black families were locked in decaying neighborhoods with no resources. By the 1970s, suburbs were rich and white. Cities were poor and black. People call it natural migration. It was government policy. Your parents' house in the suburbs, funded by a racist federal program. If your family owns a home in the suburbs, it was built on a system that excluded black people by law. Comment what suburb you're from. Follow and share. This is the blueprint of American inequality.
White people didn't destroy Seneca Village to build a park. They built a park to erase black people. Seneca Village wasn't in the way. It was thriving. Black families owned property, had voting rights, were building wealth, and that was the problem. New York's elite wanted a park, but they also wanted those black property owners gone. Two birds, one stone. They called it progress. They called it beautification. Called the residents squatters, even though they had deeds. The truth? Central Park was always about control, about who gets to own land in Manhattan, about making sure black wealth didn't grow. Black people owning prime Manhattan real estate, that couldn't stand. Not in their New York. They didn't just take the land. They erased every trace that black people were ever there. And now millions walk through that park every year with no idea they're standing on a crime scene. That land is worth billions today. The descendants of Seneca Village, they got nothing. Not even an apology. No plaques, no markers, no acknowledgement. For over a century, New York pretended Seneca Village never existed. Comment if you've been to Central Park. Follow for the history that makes people uncomfortable. They didn't teach you this in school. I will.
You ever heard of Buttermilk Bottom? Probably not. And that's exactly what they wanted. Buttermilk Bottom was a thriving black neighborhood in Atlanta. Hundreds of families, black-owned businesses, churches, schools, a whole community. Then in the 1960s, the city decided they needed a highway, Interstate 75 and 85. They called Buttermilk Bottom a slum. Said it was urban renewal, but here's the truth. It wasn't renewal. It was erasure. They bulldozed entire blocks, displaced thousands of black families, destroyed generational wealth, and for what? So white commuters could drive through faster. The people who lived there, they got nothing. No fair compensation, no relocation help. Just gone. And this wasn't just Buttermilk Bottom, Summerhill, Vine City, Sweet Auburn. All across Georgia, highways became weapons against black communities. They didn't just take land. They took legacy, they took history, they took power. And then they acted like those neighborhoods never existed. But we remember. Drop the name of a black neighborhood in Georgia that was destroyed in the comments. Follow for more hidden black Georgia history they don't want you to know.
The government turned black neighborhoods into slums on purpose. The government didn't just segregate black communities, they destroyed them deliberately. They took black neighborhoods in St. Louis and rezoned them for factories and toxic waste, on purpose, while people were still living there. Then they pointed at those same neighborhoods and said black people create slums. They created the slum, then used it as the excuse. This is in a book called The Color of Law. They never assigned it in any school in America. Press the orange cart below. Rep the hidden history at drowntownsmerch.com. Link in bio.
This is the Birmingham, Alabama airport. Planes take off from here every few minutes. Families travel. Business deals happen. Vacations begin. But this runway wasn't built on empty land. An entire black community used to stand right here. It was called Shiloh. People didn't just live here. They owned homes here. They built churches here. They buried their loved ones here. For decades, it was a tight-knit neighborhood on the edge of Birmingham. Then the airport expanded. City officials called it economic growth. They used eminent domain. Property was condemned. Families were told to relocate. Some had lived there for generations. By the early 2000s, the houses were gone, streets erased, church buildings demolished. The land was cleared, paved, and turned into runways. Today, jets lift off where living rooms once stood. Taxiways stretch across what used to be front yards. And unless someone tells you, you would never know Shiloh was here. Progress took flight, but a community was grounded forever.
A wealthy black city worth millions was deliberately destroyed by airport expansion and government harassment. It was called Kinloch, Missouri, and it was America's first black incorporated city. Founded in 1948 near Lambert Airport, Kinloch became one of the richest black communities in the Midwest. Musicians, athletes, business owners, doctors. Some residents owned private planes and luxury mansions. Black professionals who were banned from white St. Louis suburbs built their own paradise. Private clubs, successful businesses, beautiful homes. 6,000 people called Kinloch home. Money stayed in the community. Wealth grew for decades, but that prosperity made powerful people uncomfortable. Then in the 1960s, Lambert Airport wanted to expand. Officials used eminent domain to seize most of the town for new runways. Police raided homes without cause. City services were cut off. Residents faced constant harassment designed to force them out. The message was clear: leave or be pushed out. Most families had no choice but to sell and move away. Today, fewer than 300 people remain in what was once a thriving black economic powerhouse. Was this progress or planned destruction? And this was only one stop along a long forgotten road. What's your reaction to learning this history? Why do you think it isn't taught in schools? Comment below and follow Legacy Builders Eternum.
What if I told you one of America's busiest airports, Dulles International Airport, was built on top of a thriving black community that owned farms, businesses, a school, and even the county's first airport? This was Willard, Virginia, home to formerly enslaved families like the Corums, the Baileys, the Robinsons, and the Thomases. They didn't just live here. They owned it. Formerly known as Willard Crossroads, the community included farms passed down through generations, a post office, and even the Willard store, which was a community hub for all essentials. The Willard Color School, educating black children during segregation, and Shiloh Primitive Baptist Church, the heart of the community. Willard was also home to the Blue Ridge Airfield, which was Loudoun County's first airport, built on black-owned land. So in 1958, without public hearings, the federal government selected this land for Washington Dulles International Airport. Families were paid an average of $500 an acre, which was underpaid. Condemnation letters were sent to over 87 landowners. More than 300 homes were bulldozed, including homes, farms, the school, and the church. Graves were moved and families were moved off of the land that they legally owned. But the people of Willard didn't disappear. They rebuilt across Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., becoming educators, community leaders, and business owners, passing down the legacy of black ownership and excellence. Black community and excellence cannot be erased. The families of Willard rebuilt, proving that black excellence survives even when history tries to erase it. Today, we honor that legacy by building community, funding founders, and lifting black excellence at Black Girl Ventures. This Black History Month, share this story, tag a founder, and honor the power of black ownership. Happy Black History Month!
Welcome back to another episode of Gone But Not Forgotten, where we explore the destruction and extermination of over 80 black communities in America that they tried to hide.
Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport isn't just the busiest airport in the world. It's also built on the destruction of black communities. And make no mistake, the U.S. government and white officials chose to erase these neighborhoods for profit and power. In the 1950s and 60s, white mayors like William B. Hartsfield and real estate moguls like Asa Candler partnered with the federal government to expand the airport. They didn't take empty land. Instead, they targeted black neighborhoods like Mountain View and Plunkett Town. Families were forced out under eminent domain, paid pennies, and left with nowhere to go. Black churches were bulldozed. Black-owned businesses vanished. Generations of wealth were stolen in broad daylight. This wasn't an accident. Across America, whenever white America wanted land, highways, airports, stadiums, it was black families who were sacrificed. The federal government funded it, white officials ordered it, and white contractors profited from it. This is structural racism, written in concrete and steel. The names Hartsfield and Candler are honored on the walls, but the names of the black families they destroyed, erased. Like and subscribe for more history as we explore over 80 destroyed black communities in America that they tried to hide.
Did you know that Los Angeles International Airport was built over a thriving black neighborhood? In the 1920s, the Little Harlem of the West existed where LAX stands today. Black families lived peacefully, owned homes, and ran businesses in Westchester. But in the 1940s, city officials decided to build an airport, using eminent domain to force residents out. Homes were bulldozed, and many families were paid far less than their property was worth. Today, there's no marker or memorial for the community that once thrived there. Next time you fly from LAX, remember the history buried beneath the runway.
O'Hare Airport is one of the busiest in the world, a symbol of Chicago's global reach. But its rise came with a human cost few want to talk about. Entire neighborhoods were bulldozed working-class communities, many black and Latino forced out to make way for runways and terminals. Families lost homes, schools closed, and community ties were severed, all in the name of progress. The city promised relocation and compensation, but for many it wasn't enough. O'Hare's growth wasn't just about flights and commerce. It was about clearing space for economic power, no matter who got left behind. Today, the airport shines, but the stories of the displaced remain buried under concrete and asphalt. Chicago traded homes for hangars, and some communities never recovered. Yet in the heart of this new Chicago, voices refuse to be silenced. People gather, share their stories, and fight to remember what was lost. We reclaim our history, our stories. We won't let them fade into the shadows of skyscrapers and planes. The city shifts and evolves, but its true heart beats in the memories of its people. Through these stories, the essence of displaced communities lives on, a reminder that places may change, but their spirit persists.
Would you fly out of an airport built on top of a black town? That's what happened to Norfolk's black neighborhood of Compostela Heights in Virginia. In the early 1940s, this was a thriving black community, homes, businesses, and churches. But when the U.S. Navy decided they needed land to expand the nearby airfield, black residents were forced to sell or were evicted under eminent domain. Their community was bulldozed, and their history erased. Today, the area is part of the Norfolk International Airport. Thousands of flights take off and land every year, but almost nobody knows an entire black neighborhood used to exist there. This wasn't progress, it was removal. Follow if you think these communities deserve to be remembered, not paved over. It's important for us to keep telling these stories. We need to honor those who lost so much in the name of progress. When we look at the maps, we don't just see lines and plots. We see lives and legacies uprooted. Restoring these stories is crucial for our collective memory. It's about acknowledging the past to ensure a fairer future. By reclaiming our history, we reclaim our power. This isn't just about the past, it's about teaching the future to do better. Our stories deserve to be heard, to never be forgotten.
You drive past the Pentagon every day and have no idea you're passing over a stolen black town. That building isn't just a military headquarters. It's a grave marker for a community called Queen City. Queen City sat in East Arlington, a thriving black-owned town, homes, churches, businesses. They built their American dream brick by brick. If this is history you were never taught, hit follow now, because this gets buried on purpose. In 1942, the U.S. government showed up with a vision. They preached freedom overseas, while erasing black Americans at home. They used eminent domain, which really means we're taking your land. Families were given 30 days to leave. Then bulldozers erased everything. Today, highways sit where living rooms once were, all beneath the Pentagon. So ask yourself, was this national security or racism wrapped in a war excuse? They want this buried under asphalt. Follow for the history they tried to erase. Nestled in Arlington, Virginia, Queen City was a vibrant black neighborhood established in the early 1900s on land initially owned by the Mount Olive Baptist Church. By the late 1930s, Queen City had flourished into a close-knit community of approximately 900 residents, encompassing homes, businesses, and churches. In 1941, the federal government seized the land to construct the Pentagon, displacing 903 residents and demolishing 218 homes. Today, the physical traces of Queen City have vanished, but its legacy endures through the stories of former residents and their descendants. Queen City exemplified resilience and community spirit. Honoring its history is crucial for understanding Arlington's diverse heritage. While Queen City no longer exists physically, its memory persists, reminding us of the importance of preserving and acknowledging our shared history.
They blasted 90 black patients with 20,000 x-rays worth of radiation in a single hour. Doctors then withheld pain medication so the Pentagon could collect cleaner data. From 1960 to 1971, at the University of Cincinnati, 90 cancer patients walked in hoping for treatment. 60% black, poor, trusting the doctors. What they got was 20,000 x-rays worth of radiation blasted through their entire body in a single hour. Not to treat their cancer, to simulate what would happen to soldiers in a nuclear war. The Pentagon paid for the whole thing. Patients were even positioned like soldiers bracing for a bomb. This is where it gets unforgivable. Doctors did not give them medication to stop the nausea and vomiting. Not because they forgot, because the Pentagon needed cleaner data. 21 patients were gone within the first month. A federal judge later compared the doctors to Nazis and cited the Nuremberg Code. The families settled for millions. A memorial went up, then it got moved behind a parking garage and covered in bushes. Tuskegee was not a one-time crime. It was a template. If you want the stories they erased, follow now. What medical experiments did they run in your city and never tell you? Drop your city. I will find out.
What if Black Americans discovered historical documents proving Washington, D.C. was built on Nacotchtank tribal territory belonging to Black indigenous people? This would make them the legal owners of America's capital city. The White House, Capitol Building, and Pentagon would suddenly fall under Black indigenous sovereignty. The federal government would become tenants, forced to pay rent or face eviction. Supreme Court decisions would require approval from Black tribal councils before taking effect. Federal agencies would operate under indigenous jurisdiction, not American law. Diplomatic immunity would protect Black tribal members from all federal law enforcement. This would create the most powerful indigenous nation in world history overnight. They could control American foreign policy and federal spending with complete authority. International law would recognize their sovereignty over the seat of American power. The entire United States government system would require complete reconstruction under Black indigenous constitutional authority. One land reclamation would transform the most powerful nation on Earth. Indigenous law would govern the former rulers.
I recently learned that Lake Norman and Jordan Lake in North Carolina have towns submerged underneath. And not only were these thriving Black communities, but they also included thriving integrated communities, farming communities, small villages, and historic sites. I think it is horrific enough, insulting enough, that underneath almost every man-made lake in the United States was a thriving Black community or a thriving minority community. And it definitely adds insult to injury to then go on and punish communities that associate with the Black community or associate with those minority communities. And it really just goes to show how much is shaped by racism. Like, damn. I absolutely do wonder what those communities would be like today if they hadn't been flooded out. But if you didn't know that information before, now you do.
They flooded an entire Black town in North Carolina, and nobody stopped them. 1960s, Lincoln County, the town of Long Island, a Black community that had thrived since Reconstruction. Duke Power wanted to build a dam. The Cowans Ford Dam. They needed land, so they took it. Over 100 Black families owned farms, churches, schools, cemeteries. The government said it was for the greater good, jobs, electricity, progress. But let's be real. It was erasure with a legal stamp. Eminent domain, that's what they called it. Families who'd owned land for a century were paid pennies on the dollar. Most had no choice. Leave or drown with your home. By 1963, Lake Norman existed. Long Island didn't. Today that lake is worth billions. Mansions line the shore. Wealthy people vacation where Black families were forced out, and almost nobody knows the truth. Lake Norman is beautiful. It's also a graveyard. You've been swimming over erased history this whole time. Comment if this is the first time you're hearing this. Tag someone who lives on Lake Norman. Follow for the truth they don't want told.
That lake you vacation at, there's a Black town at the bottom, and they drowned it on purpose. 1940s, 1950s, the Army Corps of Engineers needed to build dams, create reservoirs, for the public good. But here's what that really meant. They targeted Black towns, Oscarville, Georgia, drowned in 1950 to create Lake Lanier. Over 700 Black families forced out, homes bulldozed, churches destroyed, cemeteries flooded. They gave them pennies for land worth fortunes. Seneca Village, New York, 1857, thriving Black community. They tore it down to build Central Park. But the South, they just flooded them. Coahuila, Alabama, Black town on the water, gone. Lake Martin sits on top of it now. White families boat over Black graves. And here's the evil part. They didn't just take the land, they erased the names. No historical markers, no memorials, no acknowledgement these towns ever existed. People swim in those lakes, fish in them, vacation in them, never knowing they're floating above stolen Black land, above drowned churches, above graves they never moved. Lake Lanier has one of the highest drowning rates in America. Some say it's cursed. I say it's haunted by the people they displaced and forgot. Your ancestors didn't just lose their land, they lost their entire towns. And white families built lake houses on top of the ruins. Comment the name of a lake near you. Follow for the Black southern towns they drowned and never mentioned again.
Did you know the government once destroyed a thriving Black neighborhood of 20,000 people and then left most of it empty for 60 years? In 1959, St. Louis officials looked at Mill Creek Valley and called it blighted. But this wasn't a struggling area. This was a community where Black families owned homes, ran businesses, and built wealth together. The city promised something better: modern housing, economic development, a brighter future. So they demolished everything. 20,000 residents were forced out. Entire blocks of Black-owned shops, churches, and homes were erased. But here's what they didn't tell you. Most of Mill Creek Valley was never rebuilt. 60 years later, much of it remains empty lots and vacant land. The blight excuse was a lie. If the area was truly worthless, why wasn't it developed as promised? The truth is simple. The community wasn't the problem. The community was the target. Mill Creek Valley proves what happened to so many black neighborhoods across America. They weren't failing, they were thriving, and that's exactly why they had to go.
How public housing was used to erase black neighborhoods. They didn't just build housing, they built over our neighborhoods. From the 1930s through the 1960s, cities across America claimed they were solving slum problems. In reality, they were targeting black-owned neighborhoods for demolition, replacing them with government-run public housing projects. The neighborhoods they chose weren't always crumbling. Many were stable, with black-owned homes, stores, and churches. But because they weren't white, they were labeled blight. In St. Louis, the Mill Creek Valley neighborhood, 20,000 black residents, hundreds of businesses, was raised for urban renewal. Residents were pushed into high-rise projects like Pruitt-Igoe, while their old land was sold for commercial and highway development. In Atlanta, the Buttermilk Bottom community was bulldozed in the 1960s. Public housing went up for a while, but much of the land was later redeveloped for offices and stadiums, not for the people displaced. Public housing wasn't a gift, it was a trade. Property ownership for dependency, community power for control, and long-term wealth for short-term shelter. Want me to expose how many U.S. public housing projects were built on top of destroyed black neighborhoods? The list is bigger than you think.
Did you know Cincinnati's stadium didn't just rise from the ground? It rose on the graves of an entire black neighborhood that was wiped off the map to make it happen? If you didn't know, hit follow now, because this is the kind of black history they never taught us in school. Before Riverfront Stadium opened in 1970, the land around Cincinnati's riverfront was home to generations of black families. It was part of the city's historic West End, a thriving community filled with homes, churches, small businesses, and yes, burial grounds, where free black residents, Civil War veterans, and cholera victims had been laid to rest in the 1800s. But in the 1950s and 60s, city leaders launched an urban renewal campaign to clear the land for highways, parking, and a brand new stadium. They called it progress. But for more than 25,000 black residents, it meant displacement. For the dead, it meant their graves were moved, forgotten, or simply built over in the rush to modernize. When Riverfront Stadium finally opened, the city celebrated. But what they didn't celebrate was the community that had to be erased to make it possible, and the burial sites that vanished without a trace. Like this, if your school never taught you this. Comment with the broken heart emoji if you believe the people who lived and died there deserve to be remembered. And follow for more hidden black history from Ohio they tried to erase.
This is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 10, and it reads, For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Raha HaKadosh. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners, and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Ayashar Barazar from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone, coming back at you with another lesson that is edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. And starting off, this is another installment of our camp series called For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob. All right, and this is where each week we go through the treacherous, the violent, and reckless history and deadly history that Esau Edom has put on the children of Israel. Okay, here in the United States, or Babylon the Great, as we call it. All right, and this lesson is going to be a little bit different. Normally, we have we use an article and go through it. But what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to do the lesson first, and then after the lesson, you'll see a medley of violent acts that Esau Edom, the so-called white man, did to take land from us. Now, when I say that, I have to be very clear. A lot of this land, just like they did with the Native Americans, the U.S. government was complicit, directly or indirectly. Either way, they were complicit with it. All right, and this is why, you know, we keep telling Jake, you know, we've done enough of these videos, okay, to know that the United States government has had a hand in the demise of us over here on this land. You know, and then they talk that nothing is fair. Nothing is fair when it comes to us. Okay, absolutely nothing. Okay, a lot of your highways, okay, major highways ran through our neighborhoods. Look up the Highway Act of 1956. Okay, a lot of your stadiums, okay, these man-made lakes, these big parks, you know, like Seneca Village, which is now Central Park. All right, Lake Lanier, and one that was done, which is, you know, here in Indianapolis, Eagle Creek was over. Well, you know, was a black neighborhood was there. You know, I was listening to some lady talking. You know, she goes out on her boat and she's like, yeah. And when it's, you know, real clear outside, you can see the tops of trees in the houses under the lake. And I'm like, oh shit, let me look that up. And lo and behold, you know, Eagle Creek was formerly a black neighborhood. But you have to search it on the internet. You're not going to find anything written on it, or at least I couldn't at the time doing the search. But yeah, and a lot of these properties were taken by violence. You know, they through the what's the term, eminent domain, or when they labeled a community blighted. Okay, urban renewal. All these were terms to take land that Jake had rightfully owned from them and do what they wanted to do with it. Like I said, the Highway Act of 1956. You know, from my hometown of Chicago, you got I-290, which is the Eisenhower Expressway. He was the president at the time, and Dan Ryan, he was on the committee for that. You know, that runs into the Eisenhower Expressway. I mean, these are just some fucking devils, I swear, and they need to go. You know, they're going to be exposing all of this stuff about them, and that's what this, you know, the scripture was going into. It says, "Shame shall cover thee." You know, we're starting to find all of this stuff out. You know, it's being exposed 365, 24/7. All the stuff that you did. So it wasn't just Gad who had their the Native American Indians, or Gad, that had their lands taken. It was also Jake after Reconstruction. And then you had these dumbass so-called white folks be talking shit about, well, you should build. They don't know shit about history. Build your own communities. We did, and you destroyed it, which is what this medley of videos is going to show you. Okay? The government has always been our enemy. You can see that today, but you can go back as far as the 13th Amendment. They never ended slavery. Okay? They took it from the private owners so they could have it. Read the 13th Amendment. Slavery is over except you become a felon. That's what they did. And then what's that? The Emancipation Proclamation went through Congress January 1st, 1863. Okay? Texas was the last one to approve it, June 19th, 1865. So in that 2.5 year period, they were taking all those black codes that the states had, you know, and making them laws so they would be felonies. So you can go right back to the plantation where you came from. Okay? If not another one. Or going to convict leasing, like the movie Life that they showed you. All right? Just straight fucking devils. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is our punishment. for transgressing against the Lord. And the more, I learn, and I know the other brothers who do these videos with me, that the more we learn, hey, we really messed up with Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right? But that time is coming to an end. But once again, Jake keeps running to the government for reparations. You're not going to get reparations from the organization that is responsible for you having to have it, or needing it, or wanting it. They put you in the position on purpose, okay? And it's going to make sure that you don't get out. This is something that I found. I knew about this a while ago. This is a House Resolution number 4321. It was under the 118th Congress, which convened in 2023 and 2024. So this is recent, okay? And it's legitimate because if you see the little red, white, and blue logo that says congress.gov, that's where it's taken from. You can link it right to that site, okay? But I got it from ChatGTP because they're going to go into this a little bit more details on it. But it says, for the 118th Congress, 2023 to 2024, H.R. 4321, H.R. meaning House Resolution, was the No Bailouts for Reparations Acts, okay? The official title, to prohibit the United States government from providing bailouts or other financial assistance to any state or local government that enacts any law providing reparations for slavery and for other purposes. Now, what you have to keep in mind is there were two locations that had openly expressed paying reparations to the descendants of slaves. One was California, okay, and the other one was Evanston, Illinois. All right. Now, keep in mind, at the same time that this bill is going through, or is being put out there, you had the case for the survivors of the Black Wall Street Massacre from 1921. Okay, at the time that that case had started with the Oklahoma Supreme Court, 3 of the survivors were alive. Okay, they were alive, and by the time it was once this hit the floor, okay, this bill, this House resolution, okay, once this hit the floor, the case wasn't decided on until after this hit the floor. All right, and eventually, once they put this in place, the last survivor from Tulsa, Oklahoma, I forget her name right off the top of my head, but the Oklahoma Supreme Court rejected it, so there was no reparations, even though they said you have to have survivors. Okay, well, that wasn't the case. They rejected it, even though all the proof was there. And if you'll notice in one of the documentaries, they called it a riot when that wasn't the case. The U.S. dropped bombs on that neighborhood. Jake died in that for no reason, a false accusation. All right? So go on and read about this bill. It says, key provisions. The bill proposed that the federal government could not provide bailouts or other financial assistance to any state or local government that enacted a law providing reparations for slavery. So let's say if there was another Hurricane Katrina, there was not going to be any federal aid for that if you had a law on the books. That's why you have not heard from California talking about it anymore, neither Evanston, Illinois. Okay? It says it was aimed at preventing federal taxpayer funds from indirectly supporting jurisdictions that adopt reparations programs. And look at what we're doing today. Where your tax dollars are going to a foreign country. You know who they are. You know exactly who they are. It's going to a foreign country who, for the most part, are hell-bent on destroying this place like they destroy everything else. but you don't want to help the people who built this son of a bitch, okay? And that's okay. That's okay. The bill was sponsored by Brian Babin, a Republican from Texas. No surprise there. It says the bill had 14 original co-sponsors, all Republicans. Okay, it was introduced June 23rd, 2023. Okay, and like I said, the case for Tulsa, Oklahoma, the reparations case for that was already in progress. It says, referred to the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability. It did not receive a House vote, did not pass committee, and did not become law before the end of the 118th Congress. Doesn't matter. Okay? Doesn't matter. It was out there that they were going to stop it, and they can surely stop it now. All right? Because they control the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. Okay? It says, if interested, I can also provide full text of HR 4321, explain how it affected cities that established a reparations program. So I didn't even go through all of that because we know it didn't happen, but we know it was put out there, and we also know that the reparations for the last survivors of Tulsa, Oklahoma were, rejected. All right, that's what this devil does, and you still begging the same government to bail you out when it's clear there's no intention to. All right, this is the book of Psalms, chapter 94, and starting at verse 20. It says, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by law? Okay, and who's the throne of iniquity? Who's in rulership? That's what a throne means. Esau, Edom. Okay. Shall they have fellowship with thee? Are they going to be look for your best interest? Fuck no. Which frameth mischief by law? That's the government. Okay, that's what they do. Verse 21. They gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous and condemn innocent blood. All right, they did it with this House resolution. Okay, they just did it with the 15th Amendment, the Voting Rights Act. Okay, they're going for the 14th Amendment, naturalized citizenship. All right. So it's like, once they turn that over, where do they send Jake? They don't plan on sending you nowhere. They plan on putting you in those concentration camps and killing you. They can't say, if they took you from the west coast of Africa, okay, that's going to prove that you're the Israelites, okay, at least from the southern kingdom, okay. If you got a copy or you can access a 1747 Negro land map, you had the slave coast of Judah, Wida as it says. That's right there. It's right there where they took us from and brought us over here. Okay? 1747 Negro land map. Okay? It's called the Slave Coast. And it tells you who was there. Judah, Southern Kingdom of Israel, Judah, Levi, and Benjamin. Okay? That's what they did. Okay? Condemn us. All right? It says, verse 22, but Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is my defense, and my power is the rock of my refuge. My God is the rock of my refuge. This is all we have to depend on. Okay? Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. Deuteronomy 28:68 says, no man shall redeem you. Okay? No man shall buy you. That word buy goes into the Hebrew word qanah, which means redeem. Okay? And you get the precept for that, Isaiah 47. You know, our Redeemer is the Holy One of Israel. He said, I will not meet thee as a man. Okay? So if it says no man is going to save you, and the Lord said he will not meet thee as a man, even though he is a man, that means he's coming back in his angelic power. Okay? He's not going to meet you as a fleshly man. All right? It says, and he shall bring upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Yea, Yahweh our power shall cut them off. So yeah, the Lord's coming back. You know, he's fucking up you heathen nations. Especially you, Esau Edom, the so-called white man. Especially you. Scripture say, what's that? The Donovan Compact Bible Dictionary says Edom is the only neighbor of the Israelites, the only nation that will not receive mercy. And that's you all. You are not going to receive any mercy. James 2:13. Okay? You are not going to receive it. Okay? This is the book of Micah, chapter 2. Verses 1 and 2. And it reads, woe to them that devise iniquity. And that word woe means death and destruction. All right? Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. Okay? Who's in rulership now? Who has the power in their hands? Esau Edom, the so-called white man, who is the wicked. Let me skip to go to this. This is Job. Just prove that. Job 9:24. And it reads, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Who is the wicked? Esau Edom, according to Malachi 1:4. The so-called white man. All right, he's not actually white, he's red, according to Genesis 25:25. Okay, he covereth the faces of the judges thereof. Who's the head judge? Yahushua. Okay, our Lord and Savior, the Redeemer. Okay, how did you cover his face? You put Caesar Borgia in place of him. You know, the so-called white man. That's how you covered it. All right. If not, where and who is he? So now that we know who you are, we know where you are, in control of the earth. All right. So-called white man. All right. Back to Micah, chapter 2, verse 2. He says, and they covet fields and take them by violence. That's exactly what you're going to see in this medley of videos that's going to follow the lesson. Okay? And take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Okay? He took away his home, you know, didn't pay him anything for it. There was no generational wealth. Okay, when you did that, you just took the land using your unrighteous decrees, according to Isaiah 10:1. You just took it. But you know, when you go back to the curses, that's what this is about. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 29, and it reads, and thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind grope in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. All right? Only oppressed and spoiled, robbed and spoiled of all of our, whatever we had, taken away from us. Okay? Constantly oppressed. All right? But the day comes when this devil is going to have to pay for that. All right? Real talk. This is Isaiah chapter 13. This is a prophecy. verses 9 through 11. And it says, Behold, the day of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai cometh, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate. It's talking about America, Babylon the Great. And he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. Okay? The sinners, you know, the wicked 2/3 of our people, okay? As well as Esau, Edom. It says, For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened at his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. That's because of all of the smoke from those nuclear missiles, you know, pelting this place. All right? It says, And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and I will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. It's all talking about you, Esau, Edom, primarily. You know, the other heathen nations, and, you know, of course, the wicked 2/3 of our folks. But the Lord is coming back to destroy you. You know, Isaiah 63. Who is this coming from Edom with dyed garments from Bosra? Okay, that's you, the so-called white man. He's coming to destroy. All right. And while he's punishing you all, you know, his elect are going to be beamed up on those chariots. Okay, seeing everything. All right. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 26. Verses 20 and 21. All right. It says, Come, my people. Like when he says in Revelation, come up hither. You know, it's calling us up. And we're going to hear him too. Call us up on those share. And I say us in the most humble way. You know, that I pray that I be one of his elect, you know, that's saved in that day. Say, Come, my people, enter into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation be overpassed. And that's the Lord's righteous anger against this place, Babylon the Great, aka America. All right. Verse 21, it says, For behold, the Lord cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth shall also disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain. There's going to be a lot of dead bodies laying around when the Lord come back and do his damage. And that's on top of, you know, the nukes hitting this place. All right. Yeah, all these countries are going to turn against you, America. All these countries are going to turn against you, and it's not going to be pretty, you know. And we're going to see it, just like the scriptures say. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 94, and chapter 91. Let's start at verse 7. And it says, 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. So we're going to see the destruction and the death. Okay? It says, Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. So we'll be looking out of those chariots. Okay? He says, Because thou hast made Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, which is thy refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. Okay? Meaning that, you know, hey, we trust in the Lord. We sought refuge from him. You know, take us from the snare of the fowler, you know, which is Esau, Edom. Okay? His traps. It says, There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. Okay? And then the plague, one of the plagues is those nuclear missiles. Okay? They won't be able to harm us on those chariots. Okay? It goes on to say, For he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in thy ways. All right? And that's, you know, when the Lord comes back, according to Malachi 24, the elect is going to be gathered. Okay? all those angels in the chariots, the host of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. That's his army. Okay. Verse 12 says, "They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone." Okay. We will be well protected when he returns. Okay. And then once that indignation is passed, like it said in Isaiah chapter 26, verse 21, we're gonna come back down in those angelic bodies and go to work on you heathens, especially you Esau Edom. No fucking mercy whatsoever, none whatsoever. You're gonna pay for everything that you did. All right. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 14. Verse 21. All right, it says, "Prepare a slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers." Okay, so all you out there saying, "Well, I didn't have anything to do with it. Those are my ancestors. I didn't have anything." Don't matter. Don't matter. You're gonna pay for it. The Lord said in Job 34 and 29, it's at his discretion whether he wants to judge a nation or judge a man. And the nation of Edom is going to be judged according to Obadiah 1 and 18. The whole nation. And it's going to be by the hand of the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom of Israel. All right. It says, let me go back, Isaiah 14:21. "Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquities of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities." You will never be in rulership again once we come down off of those chariots. You going into slavery for 1,000 years, gonna be twice as long and twice as hard as we did it, and we're gonna fuck you up. In righteousness. It's a righteous thing. All right. It says, "For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name, Edom," gonna be cut off, "and the remnant, and the son, and the nephew, saith Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai." That's the whole seed line. All right. Gonna be cut off. All right. And while you're in that servitude and you don't want to serve, hey, you're just going to, be taken out. All right. This is Isaiah 60, verse 12. It says, "For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted." And that's what's going to happen to you anyway, Esau Edom. It's going to happen to you anyway. Like I said, Obadiah 1 and 18. I'm going to grab that. Yeah, to conclude the lesson, and then you can watch, the clips. All right. 1 and 18. It says, "And the house of Jacob shall be a fire," Jacob being the northern kingdom, "and the house of Joseph a flame," Joseph being the northern kingdom, "and the house of Esau for stubble." Okay? You burn something down, like wheat or something like that. It's just stubble. It says, "And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai have spoken." So yes, you all have an expiration date while you're trying to get rid of us. You're the one with the expiration date, never to return again. That's what Isaiah 14 and 22 said. You will never ride nor fill the world with your. Let me go back. Fill the world with your face. Isaiah 14, 22. Yeah, that they do not, for 21, it says that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. You never be in rulership again. You have nothing to look forward to but intense, strenuous servitude. Okay? All damn day long, except on the Sabbath. And you're going to do it in the sun. Alright? So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Raha HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule well in teaching me this 100% true. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom, Guam Yasharallah, Ftvatbj. Shalom, and the video history clips is coming up next. Shalom.